You remember Digital Underground once upon a time said,
yeah,
let's get stupid. And I really think this was one of those moments. I was telling you earlier, I feel like this Bosa negotiation was a little bit like a vacation. Vacations are not smart. They're not good for your bank account, but we do them. Why? Because they're good for your family right now. And you will take the financial hit because it is something you need for now, for your mentals, for your relationships, for your calm, for your stress relief, all of those things. I look at this a little bit like that. Like
you come back from vacation, you're in salary cap hell.
Exactly. And
you're a cap casualty.
You know what? I was just on the app, and you're right. I am. But let's find out from our buddy David Lombardi of The Athletic if that's where the Niners are. David, I've seen you use that phrase on social media a few times. Niners need to do this deal in a way that keeps them out of cap hell. Did they?
We don't know yet. We're still waiting here for the details of the deal. Well, the only clues that we have are that they agreed to this on Wednesday. And I know this regime, right? I know the history of the deals that they've struck with players. And, I mean, it is phenomenal. They have now struck 7 position record deals, 7 different position record contracts since Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch took over. I don't have a way to cross-check that against other regimes in NFL history, but I have an inkling that it's a record. You go back to Jimmy Garoppolo in 2018, or even Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback who signed position record deals twice with the 49ers, but they've set the bar at the QB position back in 18. They've set the bar at left tackle for Trent Williams, linebacker Fred Warner, a tight end George Kittle, and now Nick Bosa at $34 million per year. But that's the thing. We only know the average per year right now, $34 million. We don't know what the structure of this is. We don't know what the fully guaranteed amount is. We have the total guaranteed. That's also a record at $122 million. But the fully guaranteed money is going to be a huge deal to learn. And then the structure is going to be a huge deal to learn. You know, how many dollars of this are going on the 2024 books, because that's when it's really crowded for the 49ers. I do know that they just opened up $22 million more in 2023 by restructuring Trent Williams and I believe George Kittle. And all of this tells me that Jed York is willing to open up the pocketbook. Cash is king. If you are willing to pay players guaranteed money in the form of signing or guaranteed option bonuses, by salary cap rules, that money spreads out over several seasons like an accordion instead of just one. And that's what makes it possible to fit more in the short run. And based on what I've seen from this Nick Bosa deal so far, I think it's a $50 million signing bonus, which is a record, plus the fact that they just gave George Kittle and Trent Williams massive signing bonuses. Based on what I've seen, Jed York is really willing to spend a lot of money right now. That's the only takeaway I have right now. And if he's really willing to spend a ton of money right now, that means that the 49ers have probably made this very sustainable. They got it done early in the week relative to what it could have been. TJ Watt, when he signed his deal with the Steelers a couple of years ago, that was like Friday or Saturday. They got this done on Wednesday, and I think all signals are that Jed York has opened up the checkbook and he's willing to pay for what it takes to make this easier on his salary cap.
So, in other words, and I love the breakdown, if he gets a ton of bonus money, let's say it's $50 million, it's $10 million spread out over 5 years, which would thereby reduce his average annual value cap hit, thereby making it perhaps more possible to keep everyone into next year?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you do it. You have to be willing to pay. Cash is king in the NFL. Now, there are certain limits to it. You know, obviously, if the cap is the cap. It's a hard salary cap. So at some point, the math stops mathing, and you can't fit everything under the cap. The Rams found out the hard way this past year. They had to start cutting people. But the 49ers believe that they are still in a sustainable position for 2024, even despite having all of these massive contracts on this team, because they believe they have enough cash on hand and they have the whole setup in such a way that they'll be able to restructure enough deals, and they have enough room to make these restructures to make it work. I liken it to a sink that's filling up with water. The salary cap is the sink. You're going to have expenditures like this Nick Bosa contract pouring in, but you're going to also have expenditures going out of the drain at the bottom. Your drain can't get too clogged. The Rams' drain got too clogged last year, right? And they weren't, they couldn't have enough expenditures keeping out of the bottom, so they essentially had the sink overflow.
David Lombardi. Go ahead. Sorry, you broke up there for a second. Continue. Yes, please.
The 49ers believe they're still in sustainable position with the sink right now. They believe that they could still have water pouring in, but they have enough of an outlet of the water coming out the other end so that they can keep the sink at a good spot.
Okay, let's talk about that because it's sort of a subject for another day, but at the same time, I know it matters to people. And while you don't have the details yet, David, I wonder what your reaction is to this and how it may affect specifically Brandon Ayuk.
How it might impact Brandon Ayuk? Well, here's the 49ers' overall philosophy, and they've followed this. They followed it really well here over several seasons. They want to acquire players who are either A-listers right now or who they can develop into A-listers. Then they decide to pay those A-listers. If somebody has proven to be an A-lister, Nick Bosa has obviously proven to be an A-lister, the 49ers will pay them, especially if they drafted them. I think they determined that DeForest Buckner wasn't quite at that A-list level. I think that he was just a little bit below it, so he's the one guy they haven't paid. And right now, lo and behold, they signed Javon Hargrave, who's actually put up better pass rushing metrics than DeForest Buckner in his career. So all of these players, they're A-listers. They've decided to retain them. The players who the 49ers have decided not to retain have been the B-listers, somebody like Charles Omenihu, Benson Ebukam, even Jimmy Garoppolo. They didn't deem that he was right up there at that A-list. Might have been at the B-plus list, but just not quite enough for the 49ers to justify retaining him at relatively big money. So with those guys, they tried to replenish the cupboard through the draft, which is the cost-controlled way of getting talent. And in that way, the 49ers have been able to maintain a roster that is very top-heavy, right, as far as the contracts go. But it's still good and deep throughout because the draft picks that they all have, all these mid-rounders that are performing well, have been able to fill out the margins of the roster at an affordable price. That's how you afford the more expensive guys. Now, every single season here, the cap is projected to increase, to go up, which theoretically means you can add another A-lister into the fold. So Kyle Shanahan today said, I'd like to add another one every single year. And look, 2020, they added George Kittle's contract to the books. That was a record. 2021, they added two. They added Trent Williams and they added Fred Warner's contract to the books, 2 records. 2022, they added Deebo Samuel's contract to the books. Not a record, but still really expensive. 2023, Nick Bosa, new record. 2024, another big deal for Brandon Ayuk. Is he going to be the 2024 flag carrier? I think the 49ers want that to happen, but he's got to prove it on the field first. He has to unequivocally establish himself as an A-lister on the field this year, and if he does that, the 49ers track record tells us that they will take care of him. It's as simple as that. He has to deliver here in 2023. They'll take care of him in 2024.
David Lombardi from The Athletic here on 95.7 The Game. Is there a point when you look at the salary cap and all of these contracts, and you talked about the sink filling up, is there a point down the road where you feel like the drain plug will be clogged and the sink will overflow with all of these contracts being on the books?
No, because if the 49ers continue managing their money right, and again, I'm assuming that they like the structure of this Bosa deal. I don't think that they suddenly decided to be reckless with it. I think that they structured it in a way that fits with the whole sink theory that I threw at you there. But assuming that the salary cap keeps growing every year, and the NFL salary cap is tied to league revenues, and league revenues are skyrocketing because of the new media contract. So assuming that grows, you can fit more and more A-list guys under the roof, right? Also, at a certain point, these A-lister contracts that you signed a few years ago are going to expire, and you probably won't keep those players. So you'll replace them with new big deals. Like this new Bosa deal is going to go on the books. Well, something like George Kittle's deal is not going to be on the books forever because that one was signed way back in 2020. So it's about, to throw another metaphor at you, it's like surfing a wave, right? They're just trying to surf the wave and stay stable here. And as long as you are smart in the way that you structure these contracts, as long as you have the financial wherewithal and the desire to toss out a lot of guaranteed money to surf the wave through the signing bonus amortization that I talked about, as long as you're willing to do those two things, and as long as you draft well, and the 49ers have with the middle round picks to be able to fill out the margins of your roster, you can keep on surfing the wave indefinitely. Now, it's where you start making bad personnel decisions. If too many of those pile up, that's when the wave will come crashing down on you. But I think that in general, the 49ers have made a whole lot more good decisions with this roster, with their draft picks, than bad ones, and that's why their roster looks so good right now, and Nick Bosa's back on it, and he's paid for the future.
David, you were there today. Can you share with our listeners what it felt like and what it looked like when word spread throughout the facility?
Well, the 49ers were eating lunch, most of them at the time. It was around 12:45 p.m., so most of the guys were in the cafeteria.
And then that was it.
Yeah.
They were having lunch, and then word came in, and lunch was over. And that's it.
Yeah. Wow. They were eating food, and then they paused between bites,
I
and
mean,
that was it.
I thought we were having a Steve Kerr moment. I thought I asked something controversial. I thought that was a pretty,
David, are you still there?
Yeah, pretty benign. Just wanted to kind of get a little vibe. Are you there, David? Do we have you back?
Yeah, I'm here. You
All
hear
right.
me?
Yeah, you were talking about lunch, which is always a wonderful subject around here, and then we lost you.
Yeah, so it was a really nice lunch, and Fred Warner was near the cafeteria, I think before or after lunch, and he passed by Steve Wilks, the new defensive coordinator. Steve Wilks grabs Fred Warner and said, "Bosa's here." That's all he said. And Fred Warner just started yelling and screaming and running around the building, and according to Javon Hargrave, he ran into the locker room, and that's how Javon Hargrave found out that Nick Bosa had signed with the 49ers. And then everybody was just yelling and screaming, and they're really happy, and they're all checking their phones to see the details. And that was the scene at the 49ers facility today. Apparently, Fred Warner was the big messenger of the news, but it was a game of telephone. He got it from Steve Wilks.
Excellent. And Nick Bosa reportedly on his way and is expected to be there later tonight or tomorrow. So what's the plan, not only for the Niners, but what do you expect from Nick Bosa between now and Sunday in terms of their practice time and his ability to ramp up for Sunday?
Well, TJ Watt went through something similar a couple seasons ago, and funny enough, the 49ers will see him on the other side on Sunday. He was a hold-in at camp, so the Steelers had a better gauge of what kind of shape TJ Watt was in. But anyway, I think he barged into the owner's office on like Friday or Saturday. Watt did, and was playing on Sunday. And Mike Tomlin said in his press conference this week that TJ Watt was TJ Watt once the game started on Sunday. There was no difference. And he went on to win Defensive Player of the Year in 2021. I think the 49ers fully expect something similar from Nick Bosa, who is famously good at keeping himself in shape at his compound at the gym over there in Fort Lauderdale. Remember that Bosa hasn't participated in preseason before. So all of his performances in the past have come after some practice, yes, but haven't come after any game reps in August. So I think the 49ers think that he's going to be locked, loaded, and ready to go on Sunday until they hear differently. I mean, Kyle Shanahan joked about it today. He said, unless Nick Bosa comes in with a beer belly, I'm not concerned at all about his readiness for Sunday. And then Shanahan said that having a beer belly is not in Bosa's DNA.
David Lombardi, The Athletic. Hey, man, great stuff. Hey, also, real quick, can you now just put a cap, in your words, on this offseason and how the, I don't know if controversies is the right word, the unrest, the discussion around all of these things from Purdy to Darnold to Lance to Bosa, what kind of an effect do you think that has had on the actual team?
I think it had more of an effect on people creating content on the internet than it did on the actual team. Just think, we got from point A to point B. So I don't think there's any major surprises about where point B ended up from the start of point A. I mean, it was clear the 49ers had mentally moved on to Brock Purdy at the end of last season. I think if there was a big surprise, it was the speed of Brock Purdy's recovery from injury, right? So the fact that Trey Lance is elsewhere now in the larger scheme of things, just over the course of this offseason, can't be seen as all that shocking, right? If you go back to 2021, obviously it's extremely shocking. But based on what we knew entering the offseason, the most surprising thing is that Brock Purdy healed so fast to where they're able to recoup some value for Trey Lance. And then as far as Nick Bosa went, we expected the deadline to spur action, and the deadline did spur action. Was the road to get there a little more stressful than the 49ers would have wanted? Sure. But they ended up getting from point A to point B. Their roster is really healing up now. I mean, guys like Kittle and Hufanga, everybody was back out of practice today. And, you know, the battle station is fully operational heading into Pittsburgh in week 1. And the NFL is a what have you done for me lately kind of situation. And the 49ers, as long as they're ready, no matter how, you know, roundabout the road was to get there, as long as they're ready for Sunday, that's all that anybody cares about, and that is the case right now.
Okay, David, great stuff, man. Thank you for hopping on.
All right, thank you.
Okay, David Lombardi, The Athletic. So, sure, contract details still to come in, but there are some indicators.